The gaming industry is steadily rising yearly. Even with madness from COVID-19, this industry still keeps going up. So that means the games are developed better. Better story, better sound design, better graphics, better mechanics, everything is better, right? That's what an ordinary man would think. But in this industry, the logic is thrown out of the window. Shot several times over, then buried 6 feet into the ground. The majority of these big games with the big publishers and developers released in these previous years were utter garbage. Buggy releases, live service games, incomplete games, apologies after apologies. All of these flops in the gaming industry, like Babylon's Fall, were indeed a fall for Square Enix. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, an infinite disaster indeed. Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, the game really killed itself. And many more failures keep releasing. But many ingenious corporations thought, well, why risk another commercial failure when we can reuse and keep reusing old games? So a new era begins, the era of remasters and remakes. Before we'll talk more about them, first let's make a quick intro about these two concepts. The remasters are like a better version of something old. Enhanced graphics, better sound design, but it mostly remains faithful to the original game. On the other side, the remakes are built from the ground up. This means that they can alter very much from its predecessor, cutting and even adding extra things like quests or part of a map. Now that we got that out of the way, let's return to the subject at hand. Why do we see this rise of remasters and remakes? First of all, why use your mind to create something new or continue a story when you can simply reuse something and get rid of headaches of brainstorming an idea? This lack of imagination is the problem. The people got too lazy to come up with a new proper idea. It's true that developers are limited by many things like budget, deadlines, or even issues about the trajectory of the game. Of course, it's hard to come up with something unique these days on the market, but it's not impossible. Helldivers 2 is a prime example, or Baldur's Gate 3. Both of them are made by indie studios, so this shows that you don't need so much manpower. Just a few are sufficient. Behind this lack of imagination is the lack of desire to create something unique, because it's hard these times to create something innovative. So the big corporations just choose to use as little as possible imagination, because it takes time and many brainstorming sessions to come up with not only a good idea of game, mechanic, story, but also the idea on how to implement them. And a prime example is Alpha Protocol. Many of you may have never heard about this espionage RPG. It had many great ideas, gadgets to use in your favor, the dialogue options, and how it affected the interaction with other characters. You could even ally with the hitman sent after you if you impress him enough. And the overall world and story was so rich and full of details. And remember, after all, you're playing a game, not just watching a movie. So it wouldn't mean the whole world if you couldn't enjoy the mechanics and the shooting. And that's exactly what happened. Bad mechanics, bad shooting, and bugs killed a potentially great game. Everybody remembers the greatest game ever made, the zombie game, The Last of Us. Released in 2013, people went crazy after it. This was the real deal. So all eyes were on Naughty Dog and their next game. So after some time, Sony announced the unbelievable remaster for The Last of Us. But it surely was a long time before the original game and the remaster, right? No, after just 1 year, they remastered the original game. As you may guess, the improvements were very minor. But it's okay because the developers knew how much time the gamers liked this game, so then in 2022, Naughty Dog released a remake for it. This remake offered even better graphics and sound design overhaul. Better optimized. They had so many ideas about the sequel that they had to release it after 7 years. And of course, the sequel also needed a remastered version. I understand that this allows the new generation to play old games in a more modernized way, or just to make an older game more playable for this time. Let's take a look at another popular example in this industry, the Uncharted franchise. The first Uncharted was released in 2007, the second in 2009, and the third in 2011. All of these three games were remastered in 2015. Only the first Uncharted felt the graphics upgrade. The other two were just there for filling, because they already had better graphics than the first game. Then Uncharted 4, released in 2016, got a remastered 2 in 2022. For this one, there's a game to find clues where the graphics are better, because there's such little improvement in that department that you can barely even see it. The only good thing is the 60 FPS gameplay in comparison with the original game. The problem is not that they're remastering old games, the issue is that they're remastering good games that didn't need to be remastered. Or they didn't receive such a huge difference to the graphics or performance to make it worth buying. As we know, the primary scope of a company is to make money. This doesn't mean that the road to achieve a high revenue has to be made by creating lifeless games or grab games, and neither by cutting corners to maximize your efficiency. But in this market, like the rest, you must use any advantage you have against your competitors. This is how corporations are thinking. So the most easy way to create a game is by diminishing the cost of production by any means necessary. And we have seen this. Many employees got fired in this domain. This way to minimize the production cost is also in the development process, which is the most effective way to reduce the cost. By creating remasters, the only cost for this production is to polish the game a little bit. Throw in a new paint and the new project is done. This cut cost production many times leads to cut content. At the beginning, the company has some ideas about their next project, but over time they realize that it's too complicated to make the game the way they desired. But also as it was showcased, because of the strict deadlines, the budget limit, the bad management, etc. Let's look at the Star Wars collection, made by Aspyr this year. This collection includes Star Wars Battlefront from 2004 and Battlefront 2 from 2005. You could think, well, this is great to have such old games remastered in this year, so that the new generations and those that played it at launch can enjoy these two classic games in a more modernized way, like upscaling resolution and better optimization. Well, the release was a real mess! The game was so poorly optimized it even had more bugs than the original games launched 20 years ago. You would think that having access these days to better and powerful tools will make this game play like a game released in 2024. But this is how it is in the gaming industry. Nothing has to make sense, just the income has to keep floating. To understand how worse it was made, the original games were about 7 gigabytes together. This collection has around 70 gigabytes with all the updates. What could someone do to a remastered game to make it 10 times the size? The graphics are not even worth that entire waste of space on your hard drive. The AI is the same, you feel that the gameplay has the same feeling from 2005. Even the loading screen takes much more than the original ones. You can buy both the original games for the price of 1975 euros, than to pay 34.14 euros. You're better playing the original games than this mess. What is the thing that every man fears? The unknown. The man doesn't like to work with variables unknown to him. That's why most of us don't want major changes in our lives, to try new things. It's scientifically proven that human beings have risk aversion. It's in our nature. This aversion to the unknown brings risks, because you don't know what you're dealing with. This exact thinking is also one behind corporations. They don't want to take risks. It is much easier to stick to the old and tested formula that has brought results in the past, rather than trying innovative ways that are more risky because you may never know how well it will achieve the desired result. Why come up with a new game mechanic when you could just relentlessly clear outposts and climb the darn towers over and over again? This predictability of results is killing the development of a game. This fear of risk also leads to missed opportunities and average results, because you can have great results by doing something that everybody does. This false sense of security that corporations think they have is also doomed because they waste opportunities to create a new game with innovative mechanics and story. You know which MMORPG is the most famous? You guessed it, World of Warcraft. And who made it? You guessed it again, Blizzard Entertainment. Another great company that wishes to please the gamer in any way possible. So of course, when they've heard the players shouting for a remastered version of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos from 2002, so of course Blizzard did everything in their power to make a great remaster. So in the year 2022, everyone who tried to play the game couldn't contain their happiness after being welcomed by a massacre of the original game. A few highlights are cut from the original game, bad UI design, many promises like new voiceovers were not in the game, many technical problems, and of course, bugs, and the list keeps going. Even the big dogs are hooked by this trend. Everybody likes GTA. Who doesn't? Have you played the old GTA from 2001, 2002, and 2004? Those years sound so long ago. Well, lucky us that in 2021 Rockstar has blessed us, the common gamers, with a remake. Not one, not two, but 3 remakes. The graphics were so odd that even the modders created better remakes than these jokes. The textures were screwed up, but look at these hands! Aren't they beautiful? But what about this unique rain? Unique, indeed, I know. Surely not all 3 games are like this? Well, yeah, they are pretty worse. I don't know how a remastered version like this can exist. Now let's also take a look at the remakes, because surely these ones are much better. They make the game from the ground up with a powerful new engine, right? Oh boy, you couldn't be more wrong. I don't know how many of you know about 13 from 2003. It's a first-person shooter game with a cartoonish theme. The plot is the protagonist wakes on a beach. He doesn't remember anything because typically he has amnesia, and so he tries to find clues about his identity. But through his journey, he is dragged into a conspiracy to overthrow the government. As you can guess it was nothing too great, but in time it got a cult following. This led to the remake of the game in 2020. This game was so soulless. The animations are just bad. I think the developers wanted to have AI from 1999, and the bosses frequently got stuck in objects. And what made this game unique was the cartoon elements that were absent from the remake, the footsteps from the enemy. But they add the sprint option after they turn down the speed of the character. And also, they add a bar for the sprint because who would want to finish this game too quickly? After 3 days after the launch, the publishers and the developer Play Magic had to apologize for the state of the game. After 17 years, this game received a remake so it could have a change to popularity. But it had no change because it was developed just to gain some money by reusing an old IP. So, don't get me wrong, I like remasters and remakes, but if you try to exploit old games just for a quick buck, I won't accept it. Who needs a remastered version after 1 year? What could possibly change so much to have a huge impact over the game to release a remastered version of it? Not all remasters are bad. Take a look at the Halo, the Master Chief Collection, a bundle of 6 games. The first Halo released in 2001, which truly needed an improvement in all domains after 13 years. And guess what? It received a proper remaster. Better textures, better character models, and even the sound design is superior to the original game. This is a prime example of a good remaster that put to use the technology from 2014. An exemplary remake is Mafia Definitive Edition, released in 2022. It's the remake of the first Mafia from 2002, and you could possibly think how this remake is looking. It's absolutely gorgeous. especially compared to the original game. The main missions are all there, not one was cut. They cut some things from the original one, like the dogs. There were no dogs NPCs in the remake, but they also added new things like new dialogue and cutscenes to create a better backstory for the characters in this world, or the possibility to drive motorcycles and boats. And to feel that the game has been modernized, they added new mechanics to the game, like the cover system that is really well implemented. The NPCs also benefit from this mechanic, and you can feel the improved AI. And it's so cool to see your character reacting when he is shot at. Also, the enemies react if you shoot them in different parts of the body. Shoot them in the leg, they will limp, and also have great ragdoll physics. Another great example of a good remake that truly used the new technology is System Shock Remake from 2023. The original game is so old that there are chances that you weren't even born in that year. The original was released in 1994. For those that don't know what this game is about, broadly it's about a hacker, the protagonist that gets caught doing naughty and illegal things to the space station, and so the protagonist must overcome the AI that protects the space station and its secrets. I'm not gonna talk about the textures because they are pretty damn good because of the Unreal Engine 4. This remake is truly faithful to the map design, the map being used like a maze for the player, exactly as it was intended in the original one. Of course, it is not perfect, the combat is nothing wow, but the overall experience is great, especially for an indie studio. So those are the main reasons why we're seeing this increase in remasters and remakes, and that there are some good remakes and remasters out there. Thanks for watching if you followed this far anyway.